Lots of people today resonate with the idea that the body speaks to us through symptoms and feedback. But what happens when we overlay this with Vedic medical astrology?
I mean, even without getting to the specific degrees, even if you know the properties of the planet on what kind of issues they are likely to create. So Jupiter is considered auspicious planet, but once a planet has been given a policy in your horoscope, malefics or benefics, they still have to execute that policy.
Welcome to the Frequency Files. Thanks for joining us as we explore the vibrations, forms, and creations and mechanisms behind them that inform the nature of existence. Manoj, it's amazing to have you back with us today to dive deeper into the essence of what medical astrology is. Because I think for a lot of people, they may not have heard that particular term or those two terms being put together. So, firstly, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm also delighted to be back on your podcast, Sarah, and thanks for the opportunity given one more time.
Oh, absolutely. So let's start from where we left off last episode, which was really diving deeper into what this means. What does when someone says medical astrology, what does this mean?
See, medical astrology is a course, it's a blended um, science
Mm,
where see, every individual is born with certain vulnerabilities. His horoscope is made the day someone is born using the date, time, and place of the birth. And as a lot of people may be aware, there is sixth house in the chart indicates the kind of diseases that you are likely. What are you susceptible to? What are you vulnerable to? Also, there are houses which tell you the resistance capacity that you have. So there is a disease part of it, and there is a fighting capability part of it. So both of them are given to you. Medical astrology is a science, a specialized branch of astrology, which tries to decipher um, what those vulnerabilities are in your horoscope and what is it that you can do uh, to, at least be prepared. You are better prepared to handle the situation that you are likely to get into. And if there is a possibility of uh, you not you not doing something uh, unknowingly that kind of triggers the karmic event of that disease manifestation too early than what it was destined for. Of course, there is a preventive, I mean, there is a predictive part of it in terms of what you are likely to face, when you are likely to face. And of course, there is a reactive part of it that you are into it right now. And what is it that, how does the prognosis look like? And what are the chances of your recovery or otherwise? So that's the science called medical astrology. You see, in Indian context, uh, astrology as well as Ayurveda, they both are branches of Veda. So they go hand in hand. And that's why I think there are connections between these two, though they are not very explicit. You have to draw them using certain analogy. But these sciences have been existing and have been leveraging each other for a while. So medical astrology always existed, and as we are talking before we started the podcast, we I personally believe that astrology, for it to be very meaningful in today's context, we need to make it an applied astrology by connecting a lot of other subjects to astrology so that astrology can guide you the right way when you are making karmic choices. Otherwise, theoretically knowing certain things may not be of great use for people unless we are able to tell them how to navigate whatever situation they're likely to face.
Mm. And how does someone begin to unpack that for themselves? Let's say they're looking at their own charts or they're wanting to learn more. Where do they begin?
So let's divide this answer. Let me divide this answer in two parts.
Yeah.
One is for the astrologers. How should they actually look at it, and what is necessary for them to be a good medical astrologer? And the other one is for the natives. There's little that they can do. Someone who doesn't know science, it's going to be very difficult for them to decipher. So primarily, we'll talk about how should astrologers start looking at this specialized branch
Mm.
and leverage some core principles that they may be aware already, to also talk about medical astrology. As I said, for astrology to become more relevant in today's context, it is important for any astrologer to study subjects which are beyond astrology. So, if you want to be a good medical astrologer, some foundational knowledge of anatomy, foundational knowledge of physiology, foundational knowledge of how various systems in body function. It's extremely important because when a native comes to you with a problem, medical problem, that native has set of reports, set of symptoms, hmm, set of uneasy things that someone is experiencing. If you're not able to connect to what's happening internally to body, it's very difficult for you to diagnose and confirm whether the chart is suggesting something or not, right? For example, and with this example, we'll explain what it means to study anatomy and physiology. It's not, you are not going to be a medical professional. You just have to know the principle with which a particular organ works. Let's take an example of kidneys. We all know that kidney purifies our blood, right? So it takes out waste and sends the purified blood back in the circulatory system, right? In medical astrology, kidneys are associated with Libra as a sign. Okay. Why Libra? Libra has nothing to do with purification directly. Yeah. Main function of kidneys is to maintain the pH balance
Mm.
of your blood. The purification is an act using which the pH balance is maintained. Letting the
Yeah.
value is 7.4. If your blood becomes more acidic, that's not good. If your blood becomes more alkaline, that's not good either. So 7.4 is the value which has been given to the kidney that you have to maintain the blood pH to 7.4.
Mm.
And to maintain that, purification is the process. So we should not associate kidneys with purification. We should associate kidneys with maintaining the balance. And that's exactly what the sign is also suggesting. The both the sides of that particular weighing scale, they're exactly at the same level. They are not up and down, or even Libra ascendants will people with Libra ascendant, they are very balanced in nature, or those with Libra moon sign, they're very balanced. They don't go either way on extreme sides very easily. That's how you connect. So you have to understand the. So what I told you the anatomy, right? So there are two kidneys, and there are two sides to that particular thing. Now, the physiologically, it's actually maintaining the balance, pH
Yeah.
balance, and then you again go back to how Libra as a sign behaves. So this is converting the anatomy, physiology, pathology into astropathology. Because when things go bad in kidneys, first thing that you check is your pH balance and whether it's hypo or hyper, and that's how you start deciding. Now if someone comes to you with some disease, kidney disease, right? So you have to start looking at where is my Libra sign in this whole chart and what's happening with that Libra sign. Now, is it an acute thing maybe because of the transits, or is it a chronic thing which existed and it has just manifested because of the transit? So that's how you start connecting, and then there are ways to start countering them. If there is a handle which is already provided, then we can actually start countering the ill effects that may have been produced by a particular planet. So, in summary, the signs, the zodiac signs. Rashis, as we call it in the Hindu astrology, it's their anatomy, and the planet is the physiology, because physiology is in motion, and planet is the only thing which is in motion, has omega, etc. It's circulatory, it's repetitive. Like physiology also is repetitive. It does same thing again and again in a particular cycle, right? So signs are anatomy, and the planets are the physiology part of it. And the combined effect is what we try to study in medical astrology. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Can you give a few more examples of the signs like you did with the liver, the kidney? That just made so much intuitive sense. Is there any others like that? Maybe some that are really obvious and some that are people might not suspect?
Oh, definitely we can talk about all 12 signs if our
That'd be
time
great.
permits. Yeah. Let's take example of lungs. The Gemini lungs are connected with Gemini sign, right? It's two, first of all. It's a dual sign. Now, in Vedic astrology, the Gemini signs, the foundational principle is give and take. It's communication. And the sign is that there's a boy and there's a girl. They're talking, and girl is kind of little shy. She's looking down. Maybe boy is saying something that makes her feel a little shy, something like that. So there is a process of exchange happening without words. Okay, that's how Gemini sign is to be deciphered. Now, lungs. Let's come to lungs and why Gemini and lungs are connected. We all know that there is something called alveoli in lungs, right? So there is the small grape-like structures. In COVID, everybody got to know about what this alveoli is, because that's where the virus is to go and sit. What happens in lungs is we exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. Blood, impure blood goes to lungs for purification in sense, and in alveoli, which is a membrane, using process of diffusion, the carbon dioxide is given away and oxygen is taken. So there is a give and take happening, but there is a membrane in between. We say that give and take is not just direct, it is happening through some understanding that only oxygen will come in and the carbon dioxide molecules will go out. So this kind of an understanding is already established between that the membrane and the things that are passing across that membrane. Likewise, in Gemini, so there's an understanding between that boy and a girl may have, and that's why the sign indicates that there's a bit of communication going on where it is not spoken, but it is understood, right? So that's why lungs connected with Gemini as a sign. That's a very, very, and you'll find it very, very evident in many horoscopes. Now, the interesting part in medical astrology is, or maybe let's take example of heart. Heart is connected with Leo as a sign. Okay, while Leo is connected not just with heart, also with spine, because people with Leo as a sign, they have a lot of ego. That's how it is seen. Yeah, because it's ruled by Sun. Sun is the king. King doesn't
Yeah.
like to be told anything, and it keeps everything rotating around itself, right? So Leo is connected with heart. Now look at Sun. Sun, while Sun is known for integrity, it epitomizes ethics. How does it translate into the astropathology? When blood comes into heart, heart also needs blood for its own functioning, right? So it will come into chambers. Hmm?
Hmm.
It doesn't happen that, okay, because heart doesn't take out some blood just because it's getting accumulated directly. It will pump it out first to the whole body,
Hmm.
and only then, as a first recipient through those big aortas, etc., it will take the blood which is required. So just because blood is getting stored in the heart doesn't take out blood just from the left ventricle directly without pumping it out. So as a principle, it is supposed to be pumped out, and be fair that only after it is pumped out of the storage I will accept. That's the characterization of ethics which sun indicates. And that's why even heart, you'll see a lot of people, they say when someone is not able to maintain their dignity, we say the person doesn't have spine. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how it is said, right? So sun is spine. Sun will never bow in front of anybody. And that's why when you are hurt, when ego is hurt, while it hurts mind, but your heart starts pumping much faster, right? So that's how now. But if I say Leo is heart has so many things. It has left ventricle, right ventricle. It has mitral walls. It has sinoatrial node, which is kind of giving that voltage which keeps the heart pumping. So how do we look at the subsections of a particular organ? So that's where the divisional charts come into play. So if you look at D12, the 12, because D12 is actually a genetic horoscope which tells a lot about how you have inherited your genes from your parents. So D12 horoscope can tell you the subsections that, okay, the first subsection indicates the ventricles, the second subsection indicates the valve. Now, it may have its own subsections may have its own functionality associated with a different sign. Let's say valve. Valve is a preventive mechanism. So that blood, when it comes from one to other chamber, it should not flow back, right? So it's a one-way flow, right? So one-way flow is indicated by Capricorn in medical astrology. So Leo as a sign and Capricorn D12, the 12th part, which is Capricorn ruling, the 12th part is again ruled by various subsigns, right? So it's getting slightly technical, but once you divide a sign into 12 smaller sections, you can again assign various signs to it. And so a combination of Leo and a D12 Capricorn, that kind of tells you that a problem may be in the mitral valve and it's not the problem of the cholesterol. It's
Ah.
a problem of the valve. It's not the problem of the cholesterol. So this is how you start looking at subsections of a particular sign and try and understand where exactly, because yes, there is a problem in heart. Yes, it is indicated in chart, but that's not precision. If you need precise diagnosis, I think that's where the divisional charts really help. And what happens is when a patient goes to hospital, sometimes symptoms are confusing. Symptoms manifest in 10 different directions. But in horoscope, there's no confusion, right? So you can actually guide the patient, or even for that matter, doctor. That I think looks like you have to go for these tests because I see there is some issue going on. So, job of medical astrologer is not to treat. You can suggest remedies. Is to guide the patient to go and get the investigations and the guide the therapy or the treatment protocol so that you don't waste time in going in 10 different directions which are not leading to any conclusion in the diagnosis. So that's how it needs to be done. Let's take one more example, an interesting one.
Yeah.
Brain. Brain. We all know that brain is connected with Aries as a sign, right?
Aries.
Aries,
Yeah.
yeah, always is trying to do things with head. Um, Now, brain never functions or never processes things in parallel. We just feel like it's doing something in parallel. The only way brain can process things is sequential. So a neuron can only process one piece of information at any given point of time, sends the feedback to the node where it got from, sends also the processed information to the subsequent node. But
Hmm.
it is doing it at such a speed that we just get an illusion that it is doing something in parallel, but never can. So Aries, so if you see the sign, that animal always moves in one straight line.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it is supposed to be. And that's why Aries, the foundational property of Aries is sequencing in a straight line. And that's how brain always processes things in a very sequential manner. That's why Aries and brain are connected. But brain again has so many subdivisions. There is hypothalamus, there is pituitary gland, there is pineal gland, There is cortex, there is cerebellum, there is, I don't know, so many more things.
Hippocampus. Yeah.
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 So if you go to D12 chart, so if I divide Aries into 12 smaller sections of, D12 means what? Roughly about 2 degrees and 30 minutes each. I can again label those subsections using signs. Like the first subsection of Aries, D12 subsection of Aries is Aries, and then second one becomes Taurus, etc. So each one of them will again indicate a smaller part of the brain. So once you know the degrees of the planet, let's say someone has Aries in the sixth house, which is indicating diseases, and there's a planet. Oh, okay, Aries in sixth house. Okay,
Yeah.
so and if there is something like let's say Mercury, or maybe sometimes even for that matter, Uranus,
Mm.
Neptune, these kind of planets, then it tells you a story about looking at the degrees. It will tell you which part of the brain is leading to. Maybe each part of the brain has a specific function, and we can, looking at the degrees of the planet, we can actually try to correlate if this part of the brain is actually causing the issues that are coming in. And sometimes even you don't even have to know that. Let's say if you have Jupiter in Aries in sixth house, let's say Jupiter is the largest planet, biggest planet. So if Jupiter is afflicted, it just means that there's a likelihood of clot, because clot kind of increases in size, right? Now, as against, if you find Saturn in Aries in sixth house,
Yeah.
Saturn indicates reducing something, taking something away. So it's a separative planet, right? So you might land up having deficit blood flow or something to a particular part of the brain. So I mean, even without getting to the specific degrees, even if you know the properties of the planet on what kind of issues they are likely to create. So Jupiter is considered auspicious planet, but once a planet has been given a policy in your horoscope, agnostic of whether they are naturally auspicious or malefics or benefics, they still have to execute that policy, agnostic of the natural status that has been attributed, because they are all
Yeah.
neutral bodies, and they can't go beyond the script that they have been asked to execute, right? So this is how medical astrology works. Now, without knowing anatomy, physiology, a bit of science, on the medical lines, it's very difficult for one person to understand and provide the right guidance. And that's why we keep emphasizing that if you want to be a medical astrologer, or if you want to be an astrologer guiding careers for that matter, and if you don't know anything about the contemporary choices people are going to make in career, it's very difficult for you to give right guidance, right? Because AI, data science, podcasting never existed 25 years back.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but those who are born 25 years back, like both of us, are in that process, in that
Yeah.
business. So you have to connect the contemporary things to the science and make it more
Mm.
relevant for people
Mm.
to get the karmic choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound
Wow.
interesting?
Yes. Yes. Could you go through all the other signs that we didn't touch on, like you know, from Aries on?
Okay. What all
So we
did we
did
do? So we
Aries
did
there.
it is we did Aries. Okay. So let's look at Taurus. So Taurus, the foundational property of Taurus, because it's ruled by Venus, it's creativity. Anything getting created, that's ruled by Venus. The Venus is all about creativity, art, right? Very, very. Um, Now, originality is what it characterizes. Now, Taurus rules the neck portion of it, right? So, neck. Hmm?
Ah.
Now, why neck only? Now, look at it. In neck, we have the neck is the connector between the torso and the head. That's the first part of it. Now, second, if you look at the cervical spine, so our spine has a lot of cervical spine, thoracic, then lumbar, and then sacral, right? So cervical spine is neck. That's the
Mhm.
predominant structure. There are two vertebrae called atlas And there's one more, C1, C2. C1 is the first cervical vertebra, is known as atlas, and the C2 is the second cervical vertebra, is known as axis. Saying yes and saying no, these movements are dominated by the C1, C2 vertebrae. And these are the only vertebrae which are very unique in their structure. And these are the only vertebrae which have names. Rest all vertebrae are just numbers.
Ah,
Yeah, all the way from C3 to S1, S2, S3, S4, S5 is all numbers. But C1 and C2 is such a unique creation of God that they interlock with each other so well that neck gives so many different kind of movement capabilities with rotation, saying no, saying yes, saying this way, that way. Now, this creativity, if you look, these, and that's why they only those two vertebrae have names. Rest all are just. Second, this vertebra constantly bears the load of your skull. So Taurus, the bull is the sign, hardworking, always ready to bear the load, etc., etc. So the creativity part of the Taurus is very well characterized by the C1 and C2, which is so if someone has a cervical spine issue, cervical spondylosis, I'm sure you will find Taurus sign getting involved somewhere, right? So um, that's how Taurus is connected. Of course, in neck you have, thyroid glands and other parts of it, of course, but the characterization specifically given by the C1, C2. So there is something unique which Taurus has to have because it's a unique creation out of all 33 vertebrae. These are the unique ones, and that's where Taurus and the neck part is connected. And we spoke about Gemini, I think
yep,
lungs. Why the
yep.
process of diffusion, right? It's exchange, communication, process of diffusion.
Hmm.
Now, Cancer sign, Cancer, it indicates the chest cavity. It also rules blood, not the flow, the blood, because Cancer ruler is Moon, and
Mm,
Moon, the foundational property in Vedic astrology, Moon is to provide nutrition.
mm,
Blood provides nutrition. It actually provides nutrition, and Moon rules a lot of smaller plants, vegetation, right, which provide you nutrition. So you will find that Cancer and blood and the chest cavity, they are highly connected. Cancer also rules the breast part of it. So a lot of breast cancers, you'll find the Cancer sign very, while the name just resembles. It's not a direct correlation as such,
yeah.
but that's Cancer. Then Leo, we spoke about heart and spine. In spine, while spine is ruled by Leo in total, but cervical spine maybe Taurus, thoracic spine, Leo,
Yeah.
Leo, thoracic spine is Leo and Libra, and then the sacral spine is Leo and Scorpio. So that's how it is. Now, Virgo, it rules your small intestine.
Mm,
Virgo is a very natural sign. Anything that you know naturally, anything that you do very naturally, that's ruled by Virgo. Now, intestine, and Virgo is a very, very inquisitive kind of a sign, right? They ask a lot of questions because it's ruled by Mercury. Now look at intestine. They're constantly checking when the food comes from stomach into the intestine. They're constantly checking. This is useful. This is not useful. If it is useful, absorb it. If it is not useful, throw it. So this constant mechanism of checking what's useful, what's not useful, what's useful, what's not useful, this is directly characterized by Virgo. That's why Virgo people ask a lot of questions about even trivialities. That's their nature, and that's why they feel fatigued a lot. So small intestine is directly connected to
mm,
Virgo. We spoke about Libra, kidneys, because pH balance has to be
yeah.
maintained, and then Scorpio rules the reproductive organs. The Scorpio is the eighth sign and eighth house, and eighth house is supposed to be a hidden house, right? So reproductive organs, they
Mm,
are so specifically I think there is a difference between the male and the female. There is a bit of contention whether seventh house should rule, the seventh sign should rule it, or eighth. But because structurally the anatomy is different, that's why the female reproductive system is far more complicated. That's why the seventh sign as well as the eighth sign both are applicable when it comes to female reproductive system, while
Oh,
for men it is only the eighth sign.
oh.
And nine, so we have Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the bigger planet, etc. So thighs, your entire buttocks and gluteal muscles, they are all ruled by Sagittarius. Why? Because that's where the lot of muscle mass is stored. Okay, there's a lot of fat deposition also can happen there because it's again Jupiter. It's ruled by Jupiter. And whenever we look at signs, we should always also look at it in pairs. Like right opposite to Sagittarius is Gemini. So the thigh muscles or thigh bones um, or gluteal muscles, they provide you a lot of ability to move around for you to. While Gemini also does a lot of exchange, give and take, but they are
Mm.
not moving. They're sitting there and exchanging.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sagittarius actually will get you to a place where exchange has to happen. So it is actually an enabler for Gemini to do that. So they work in tandem. And that's
Mm.
why you have to look at signs in pairs, right? That's
Mm.
how it looks like. Also, in the nervous system, Sagittarius plays a lot of roles. So, sensing certain things, while it is ruled by Mercury, and let's say Gemini, but transport of the signal physically from skin all the way till brain, Sagittarius will get involved because there's a physical transport all the way from your foot to the brain, right? But the very point of connection between the external world and your skin, that's where the sensation happens. That's actually ruled by Gemini because it's at that point, right? So that's how Sagittarius and Gemini work together to rule the overall nervous system.
Oh.
Then comes Capricorn. Capricorn rules a lot of joints, especially knee joint. So if you see people having issues with knee joint, cartilages wearing out, if someone is likely to have a TKR, total knee replacement, Capricorn is a sign. Arthritis, I mean, in many cases, you will see Capricorn being considered. Uh, Aquarius rules calf muscles and overall circulatory system because calf is considered as a second heart. It pumps blood back, right? So against gravity all the way up.
Oh.
So the calf is considered as your second heart. So Aquarius rules your calf muscle and the overall and also contributes to circulatory system. Why? Because if you look at sign right opposite Aquarius is Leo. So Leo is heart, which sends the blood, all the way till your feet, and Aquarius, right opposite, sends the blood back to heart, all the way from feet. So again, they
Oh.
work in tandem. The
Oh.
last one is Pisces, which rules pancreas specifically, or the entire endocrine gland system. Um, why pancreas? Because again, it's a dual sign, Pisces, and pancreas also work as endocrine as well as exocrine. Means there are certain enzymes which come through a pipe into the blood, and there are certain enzymes like insulin there which are directly secreted in the blood. So it behaves like an exocrine, also as an endocrine gland, and that's why the duality is also there in the sign specifically. So this is in a nutshell. Of course, there is a lot of detail that you need to go
Sure.
through to understand how to connect the dots in the horoscope. But hopefully, this summary helps people understand how to look at least at the primary level, what may be their vulnerability in the chart in terms of finding their sixth house and etc.
Mm. Yeah, that's really helpful and really helpful to talk about the physical characteristics of each of the signs. So thank you. Yeah, that's great. What about the houses and the planets and the role they have in health?
See, houses is like they are representative space, I mean the
Mm.
matter, right? So that's where the manifesting is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, what's important in medical astrology specifically, while there are certain houses which indicate diseases, like sixth
Yeah.
house or sixth from sixth is like 11th house. But in my opinion, space is a continuous thing. So the bifurcation is only for our understanding so that we can put it in a structure that we can correlate to.
Yeah.
But there's no such bifurcation in space, right? It's
Sure.
just a continuous matter.
Yeah.
So it's highly unlikely that you will find disease specific planetary placements only in these two or three houses. You will have to keep on establishing an hypothesis that, okay, you start with sixth because that's the primary, or you start with 11th because that's 6 or rather you start with the disease pathology directly and then start correlating back to it, convert that into an astropathology. Because space is continuous, you'll find that collaborative evidence for you to say whether that hypothesis is true, that yes, there's a possibility of this particular disease, or that hypothesis is not true. That exists all over the place in the horoscope. It's not that you can only restrict it to a particular set of houses, and
Mm,
that's why it makes it more complicated. And the only thing that we have to always remember is there's nothing called a always benefic planet or nothing called always malefic planet. Script that they have been given, they will start playing that role in line with the script in their dasha system, which is a very specific characteristics of the Vedic astrology.
yeah.
So when these planets kind of assume their specific mahadasha, that's where the manifestation will start coming into play.
Mm,
So houses definitely, but you have to look at the whole horoscope. Yes, you have
yeah.
to have a pivot point,
Totally.
and then you get the collaborative evidence. It's like even in the diagnosis, you just don't conclude looking at one report, right? So if you
Yeah.
find that there is issue, you have to have a collaborative evidence again, for you to confirm, using multiple tests, and only then you confirm. Exactly like that, you have to treat the houses in this context.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you were saying before, like the different qualities as it relates to health, like the expansion, Jupiter, that, it's not the right word, but like an apolitical quality, it's just
Yeah,
it's gonna show up that way, whether
yeah,
that's gonna be
yeah.
advantageous
Very
or
true.
not.
Take in case of heart attacks,
Yeah.
cholesterol. Cholesterol is actually ruled by Jupiter.
Oh.
See, cholesterol, it's said that cholesterol is present at the crime scene but is not the criminal. Because cholesterol is produced by body, 90% of the cholesterol is produced by
Mm,
body to soothe the arteries which undergo inflammation because of excessive sugar in the blood. So it
mm,
keeps on depositing itself in good faith that I want to soothe the arteries, but it starts blocking the blood flow in the process. Now, any deposition which grows in size is Jupiter. So now Jupiter, despite having the benefic qualities, can contribute to disease manifestation. Now, Jupiter, by depositing itself so much more, creates resistance, and resistance is the property of Capricorn. Okay, so you'll find it, Jupiter, Leo, Sun, Capricorn, or any kind of tunnel in the body is Scorpio, right? So all these elements, it's the way it typically works is once you know that this is the disease, you first understand the disease and write down the disease pathology. Now you convert that disease pathology into set of players that you believe will contribute to this kind of situation. Okay, as I said, this heart disease, it is blocking something. Blocking means Capricorn sign because it's Saturn's sign. Its very nature is to block certain things, make it slow, create resistance. Deposition means Jupiter has to be any kind of a tunnel in the body. It's like in advanced medical astrology, the tunnel is ruled by Scorpio. Okay, Scorpio is a sign because in reproductive systems you actually have a lot of tunnels, right? You have fallopian tubes and
mm.
vaginal tunnels, a lot of things. But
Yeah.
tunnels are all Scorpio. So you have Scorpio, then you have Jupiter because deposition is there. Then you have Capricorn because resistance is there, or Saturn, and then you have Leo or Sun. So once I know, okay, this disease means I have to have these players contributing to it. Now I will go and start seeing whether these, because if you start and directly take a look at your horoscope, there's a high chance that you'll get confused because there are like million possibilities sitting there, right? So you have to zero down uh, and fix your thinking that okay, this disease pathology means this is the astropathology of that disease, and you cannot change the astropathology of the disease in any horoscope. If I say these five elements need will contribute to heart disease, this will not change in any horoscope. They will manifest themselves slightly differently. That's your ability to connect the dots. But these four, five elements, your heart attack will not go beyond these four, five elements. That these are the ones which you'll always find as any disease, even in the modern medicine, has its own manifestation very uniquely in each individual. Likewise, even in each horoscope, the manifestation is unique, but the elements of the manifestation, Sun, Leo, resistance means Capricorn, deposition means Jupiter, and tunnel means Scorpio. This is not going to change. How they interact with each other, how each of them are connected with each other, that may have a unique flavor in each horoscope, but the astropathology will not change. Like pathology of the disease doesn't change, right? There is a artery, there is a
Yeah.
deposition, blood blocks, so that's why there is a heart attack. Likewise,
Mm.
astropathology will also not change. It should not change. Only then we'll be able to use it like a science. If you have to start uniquely justifying why it happened in each horoscope, we can't call it a science, right?
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. 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 Could you share some interesting case studies from maybe clients or students of yours who have applied these principles?
Definitely. I mean, all of the examples that I quoted, actually, I've seen
Yeah.
horoscopes of that regard. I'll share one unique thing that I used to actively research on autism.
Uh-huh.
Now, no ancient scripture has ever mentioned about autism. So how should we go about when people approach you for such things? So what is autism? Autism is someone losing connection between what is going on internally and what is going on externally. That link is broken. The consciousness, see, the man or the human is the only animal who knows that he or she is human. A dog doesn't understand that it is a dog. A cat doesn't understand it. So that consciousness is the element that differentiates us from the rest of the species, right? Now, when this consciousness and consciousness has to have duality, so what's inside and what's outside, that only then it's complete. In autism, this link is broken. So that's why you have a lot of repetitive behavior, or they understand but they're not able to express because by the time they express, the ecosystem has changed, the conversation has changed, or something like that. So how do you understand what's happening in this particular disease, right? So we used to research and we found out that planets like Uranus, when they get associated with Aries, because Uranus is the linkage between inside and outside. Anything connecting is Uranus, because Uranus is considered as the octave planet of Mercury, right? It's that, and that's why Mercury, which is cognition, Uranus is something beyond cognition, meaning the connection between what's inside and what's going on outside is beyond your direct cognition, right? Mercury can tell you that okay, if you wrong, if a small child touches a hot object, it immediately withdraws the hand, and next time it will not go and touch. This cognition is Mercury, but she is my mom. This cognition is not Mercury. That's Uranus, right? So this cognition is broken, and that's why when you find a lot of horoscopes where autism has manifested, um, you'll see that Uranus affliction with, of course, the main sign is Aries because it's something to do with brain, okay, and also Moon because it's something to do with mind, or Cancer because Moon rules Cancer. So these are some of the key findings where we believe that there is a pattern that we are seeing now. Problem is not many horoscopes provide you a handle to deal with these kind of things, right? See if if unfortunately a human being is born with lesser consciousness, means lesser ability to perform karma consciously, there's a very little action that one can initiate through them to undo something that has been already done. So that's why, in many cases, while we can make progress, I have a lot of cases where we made some great progress, but it could not reach where everybody wants it to be ultimately. But we could at least root cause what it is, and to best of our abilities, we could provide some guidelines in terms of how to navigate, the whole, spectrum that they are going to deal with life. This is another interesting case that we always saw. Uh, See, male infertility that's on rise across the world right now because of increased stress, etc. So sperms are ruled by Venus, and sperms are impacted significantly if they are under heat. And that's why the production of sperm happens away from body, right? Now, if you see Venus and Sun coming way too closer, that to in a fiery sign like Leo or in a fiery sign like Sagittarius, you can write down that a person is likely to have a very low sperm count because Venus traditionally having children is seen by Jupiter in Vedic astrology, but it's actually not having children. It's the joy of having kids, the joy part, which is after having kids, is ruled by Jupiter. Whether they will really respect you, they will take care of you or not, all those things is Jupiter. But foundationally, physiologically, having kids is ruled by, specifically in the male horoscope, is ruled by Venus because that's where it starts, sperm. Now, if sperms get too much of heat, they are in a nakshatra which is heat, let's say Mula nakshatra, or they are in a nakshatra like sign of Leo, Venus, or Venus is in Sagittarius, and on top of it, if the Venus comes very close to Saturn, because it anyway is a house ahead or house behind Sun, right? That's where you'll always find Venus. But if they are in like conjunction, that twin of fiery sign, that twin sixth house or a ninth house, which is, then you can write down 1000% that it's difficult for this person to have kids because we have seen hundreds of such cases. Because Venus is a benefic planet and there are ways to deal with all these things. But so this is the kind of research which is required, and in this whole thing, or for that matter, Rahu and Ketu, which are very specific in the Vedic astrology. As you know, Rahu is demon's head and Ketu is demon's tail. Now imagine Venus and Rahu, Ketu, Rahu, let's say Rahu, they come closer, that too in a fiery sign. It can produce headless sperms.
Oh,
It's demon. If it's Ketu, it can actually produce tailless sperms. So sperms are good, but they are not motile enough.
wow.
And you can be million% sure that this is how it will manifest. Because many times when Rahu and Venus are connected so closely in a male's horoscope, the ability of the sperm to transfer the DNA in the ovum, that's impacted significantly because the head is the Rahu, right? And that's why a lot of times after even the lady is pregnant, but the baby doesn't get the heartbeat because the DNA didn't get transferred enough. So there was motility, but the transfer was faulty because of Rahu, right? So as again in the female case, if the ovum, which is represented by moon, like if you have Venus for male sperm, if you have too many earthy signs around it, like Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus, earth means rigidity, shell. If you find too many earthy signs and earthy planets around moon, it's very difficult for sperm to break the shell and transfer, and that's why the problem of conceiving happens. So
Oh,
these are the kind of cases that we have dealt with. Of course, the regular ones are fine, but from a research standpoint, I think the spectrum disorder or Alzheimer's or the infertility cases where people are clueless in terms of why it is not happening, right? Even modern medicine, even despite there are a lot of medical procedures these days which exist, right? You know, IVF and IUT and a lot of things. Despite that, it doesn't, because foundationally, if the Venus is impacted, even if you take sperm and place it right next to ovum, it still will not have the affinity if it has been impacted by either Rahu or Ketu, which is like mobility, the very foundational affinity, the which it is supposed to carry towards the ovum. That doesn't. So these are some of the advanced research cases that we work on. Not that I see horoscopes these days, but when I used to see, I think this was one of the areas that we researched on, and we used to conduct classes around this particular topic. Mm.
Interesting. Wow. Wow. And that you've seen so many to see that trend very tangibly.
Yeah, definitely. Mm.
Wow. Manoj, is there any final thoughts or hopes that you wish people could start to understand more deeply about this modality?
Yeah, be open, study subjects beyond astrology for you to know astrology better. Make it more useful, application oriented. Uh, because only when you are able to connect the dots between this in the science, that's how our brain actually works. It works by connecting neurons, right? There are a billion neurons which are connected, and that's how you develop your cognition. So astrology also has to be learned that way. So if you want to be a great medical astrologer, you know, thanks that we are in an era that access to content is so easy. So just download an app which tells you about some disease pathology and anatomy and physiology in simple language and start connecting it to astrology. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to get some good insights in how they can help others who are coming to there for such critical issues in their life.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Manoj, thank you so much. I really appreciate listening to you and connecting and yeah, expanding horizons about the work that you do and what you're out to create.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks for the opportunity once again.